Hello and welcome to this introduction to observations. Observations are a method by which you generate your data through watching, listening and observing people and events to find out about behaviours and interactions that take place in natural settings. Observations usually aim to study people in the context of their daily lives, recording and documenting what people say and do, and these are usually recorded by making what are referred to as field notes. Observations are a method which are most commonly used in ethnographic studies, whereby the aim is to build up a comprehensive picture of the phenomena that you are studying. There are varying degrees or levels of observation, so you need to consider which one will be right for your study. So, for instance, there's participant observation, in which the researcher would aim to become immersed in the setting, participating in the activities and everyday ceremonials and rituals that are taking place while conducting the observations. The researcher would ask informal questions in order to gain a better understanding of the situation and record naturally occurring conversations as well as the behaviours of participants and detailed information about the surrounding environment. And then at the other end of the spectrum, there's non-participant observation, where the researcher would observe the research participant from a distance so that there's no interaction between the researcher and the research participants. And in some cases, the researcher may use video recordings, for example, recordings of consultations in healthcare settings, in which the researcher might want to gain a better understanding of patient behaviour in the clinic or waiting room. Depending on the level of observation required for your study, there are various other issues to consider. So, for instance, if you've not already got access to a particular setting, you'd need to think about gaining access and building a rapport with your research participants. And irrespective of whether you are already familiar and have access, observations will usually involve a high degree of negotiation with several different groups. So in medical settings, this might be consultants, junior doctors, nurse managers, staff nurses, and nursing assistants. So what are the strengths of observations then? Well, one of the greatest strengths in conducting observations is that it enables you to more clearly understand not just what people say they do, but what they actually do. Because observations can help to uncover behaviours or practices that participants may do, but they are unaware of. And from this point of view, they can be very insightful, and observations can help to generate more depth of understanding that might be gained through just using methods such as interviews or focus groups. As with any research, there are a number of practical issues. Observations are not a standalone method. They're usually conducted alongside other research methods such as interviews and focus groups, sometimes surveys. If they're part of an ethnographic study, then you'd need to seek out any documentation and to look more in depth at the historical and political context in which the research is situated. Observations are also very time consuming in building up rapport and gaining access, and then negotiating with lots of different groups of people before the observations can take place. And then conducting the observations themselves takes time. Observations are not usually one-off events, but they take place over an extended period of time, especially if you're conducting something like a process evaluation, in which you might want to observe various meetings that take place or attend clinics, in order to observe the influence of various practices which are in the process of being implemented. And then there's the time it takes to manually record field notes. In most cases, researchers make scratch notes. These are really brief notes that are made at the time of observation, and then these scratch notes are usually written up in a lot more detail as soon as possible after the observation's taken place. And in most cases, researchers who are conducting observations keep a field note diary. So this is something you'd need to consider, and this is separate to the field notes, in which the researcher would record their personal thoughts about a situation. And this can help to contextualise the research when you're reading through your field notes later on. And then finally, if the type of observation being conducted is participant observation, then it's important for you as a researcher to be reflexive and to consider your own position in the research and what influence your presence as a researcher might have on the behaviours and interactions of other people participating. Okay, thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this brief introduction to observations.